Subscribe to our channel unless you want to suffer the same fate as Pablo Escobar, minus the riches, unless you want that. Pablo Escobar was one of the most controversial, infamous, and polarizing figures in recent history. If you were alive in the 1980s and had a particular taste for coca, chances are you are aware of this man. To the uninformed, Pablo Escobar was responsible for around 80% of the world's cocaine supply in the 1980s, which made him one of the most richest and dangerous men in the world. And like many people before him, he could not escape justice as he was eventually tracked down by drug enforcement officials and was shot to death. During the height of his power, he had a beautiful mansion which served as his headquarters, but now it has become an abandoned ruin, and today we'll be exploring it. Today we bring you inside Pablo Escobar's abandoned secret mansion island, if you haven't been there already, that is. La Isla Grande. This is where the king of cocaine decided to build his luxurious mansion at the island of La Isla Grande. It was home to over 800 islanders who make their living by farming. With no electrical power and no running water, they are cut off from the rest of the world, only focusing on their lives on the island. Pablo Escobar decided to use the solidarity of the island to his advantage and would build his legendary island on this location. He would commission a grand complex featuring waterfront apartments, a palm court centered around a swimming pool, a helipad, and of course, the mansion itself. El Patron had many friends, and he took care of his friends, one way or another at least. And he even included over 300 rooms for his guests. When you're worth $30 billion, no expense need be spared. Get this, for his guest rooms, there were gold shower heads in the bathrooms. He basically wanted to recreate Miami Beach on this island across the Caribbean Sea. Escobar's palace was definitely a sight to behold. You can even see it from the Caribbean forest, and there's even a tiled pathway that leads into the mansion. But now, it's a shell of its former self. A ruin now at the mercy of Mother Nature, with wild animals inhabiting the broken walls, not to mention the rust and discolor of everything around it, and dead trees as well. La Casa Grande. La Casa Grande, or in English, the big house, was definitely big. When someone as notorious a figure as Pablo Escobar decides to hide within these walls, you can expect that not everyone can just stroll their way to his private mansion. The only way to reach this complex is by boat, just how Pablo Escobar wanted it. With the ruin that it is now, you can make your way to La Casa Grande if you knew the right people. Take note that there are no instructions on the internet, and not all locals are very keen on bringing tourists to the location. But as we mentioned earlier, it is possible to trek your way through the Caribbean forest and find the white walls that were once part of what seemed to be a ninth wonder of the world. Now, it poetically represents the legacy of Escobar, broke, defeated, and dead. Unlike some of Escobar's other properties, such as his home of Hacienda Nápoles, which was turned into an amusement theme park, Grande was left to rot and decay like Escobar's body. The swimming pool is now merely a space in which water used to occupy, and beyond that, it is a series of broken down chalets that used to overlook the oceans. Now, of course, it is far from what it was during its prime. Where speedboats would dock and armed sentry guards were posted, is now just the lonely sea with no signs of human life. How the mighty truly have fallen. You would never guess that this was once the vacation home of Escobar and the Medellin Cartel. The reason for this property's devolution is because when Escobar died, the Colombian government seized all his assets and made no use of La Casa Grande nor La Isla Grande. In short, they decided to let it rot and have nature take its course. It has now been overtaken by vegetation and is sort of a mini zoo to some wild pigs who inhabit the land. The state of this mansion symbolically represents the fate of Escobar and the Medellin Cartel. A kingpin's downfall. Pablo Escobar was a figure larger than life, for good and bad reasons. He was a criminal and will always be seen as one, but some people saw him as Colombia's own Robin Hood. He donated millions of his dollars to the people of Colombia, and his political aspirations were well documented during that time. This man made so much money that even as a known drug dealer and killer, he campaigned for president of Colombia. At the height of his powers, he made over $700 million a day. That brings in roughly over $26 billion a year. This was possible because he was the world's main export for the drug cocaine. His main customers were drug dealers from the United States. He brought in over 15 tons of his cocaine to the US every day. Many of those shipments passed through his La Casa Grande, as they controlled almost all the shipping ports of Colombia, which would make its way into key stops that would then head into the United States. The DEA were well aware of the country's drug problem, and they traced it back to the premier drug cartel of the time, the Medellin Cartel. The National Police of Colombia were hot on his trail as well, because the country's reputation was slowly deteriorating due to the underground drug trade. Search Bloc was then commenced, a collaboration between the National Police of Colombia as well as some agents of the DEA went on a public search for Escobar and the rest of the Medellin Cartel. This went on for 16 months, costing millions of dollars in the process. On December 2, 1993, Escobar was finally tracked down and tried to elude the search block. He was then shot in the leg, torso, and had a fatal shot to the ear before he eventually died. What was once a powerful, deadly symbol of notoriety ended in bloody fashion, and his blood was left to rot and decay, just like his mansion. Which part of the video is your favorite? Have you ever been to Escobar's abandoned mansion? Just drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you get notified with our latest content. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.